Hello there, Force of Will players, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about, as I'm sure you can see by the title, Typhon. He's going to be second in this new roller deck building series, it's just going to be my take on it, what I've seen from the people who I know, who I watch playtest and what they talk about, so on and so forth, and then the cards that I would like to play. So, getting right on into it, obviously, Ruler Typhon, I didn't include the order. If you're not sure what exactly Typhon does, you can only have darkness cards in your deck, and you have to have at least 100 cards, and you have no maximum deck size, and your starting life is equal to your total amount of cards in deck times X hundred, no greater than 200. For the sake of tournaments moving into the future, for people who might be curious, any tournament that I am responsible for, I will be kind of just limiting Typhon off to 200 cards. There's no real reason to go above 200, so for all intents and purposes, competitively, Typhon would be a 100 to 200 card deck. But anyway, getting right on into it, you can already kind of see some of the counts right here. So Typhon's antibodies, you can have any number of copies of antibodies in your deck, and then it just gets larger the more antibodies that you have. If it ever becomes revealed from outside the game, you draw a card. So I'm playing 14. It's more just a filler piece. The other thing for it with Typhon, you kind of want to flip back and forth a fair bit. You want to reveal cards from outside of the game. We have other ways to do that isn't just Typhon's flip, which we'll get into, but Typhon's antibodies is just an easy way to have something to order, and that you wouldn't necessarily mind dying, getting rid of, anything like that, right? Typhon's blood. So there are 14 Typhon's antibodies, by the way. There are 14 of them. Typhon's blood. This is... I feel like with Typhon's blood, depending on like your deck size, you want to play around about a fifth of your deck as Typhon's bloods. So I have 20. You can play any amount of this in your deck. You can only play one Typhon's blood per turn, and then it draws a card and produces a Darkness Will. It's also free if it's Typhon, so it doesn't actually cost 2. It is free if you are Typhon. And then if you have 6 or more bloods in your grave, you actually draw 2 and then produce 2 instead of just the 1 and 1. So at base value, Typhon's blood will replace itself. It's a different named machine for Union 7 machine for the stone for Typhon, as well as other things that might rely on different named machines. I think the stone is the biggest one that matters. And then it'll always replace itself, so it always plays value neutral, and you always gain 1 will off of it. So it's a will ramp. So Typhon's blood is just a will ramp in your deck, and then it just gets better. It becomes a value card and even a larger will ramp later on in the game. Typhon's blood, as you can see, it doesn't have quick cast. However, Typhon's arena expansion gives all darkness chance quick cast, which allows you to play them more rapidly, which is quite relevant for the deck. One of the more common things that you would want to do with Typhon, so if you go first, right, you don't have Energize, you want to play a blood, and you want to order something. So Typhon's antibodies, Echidna, Witch of the Fallen Kingdom, all these other 1-drop Darkness Resonators that we have, right? You want to play a blood, you want to order something, because that'll get your addition into play, if the effect isn't stifled or something, right? And then that addition will allow you to kind of keep going. If you have Energize, it's even easier to do. Moving on, Echidna. So Echidna is one of the best, I think the best card in Typhon. Like, Blood's pretty up there, but I'm pretty sure Echidna's just like, Echidna's the reason I want to keep the deck at 100 cards, because I want to see Echidna. Because if we look here, we're playing Call of Darkness, which searches your deck for villains. We don't get the other Force Resonances because we don't have them. Echidna is a villains. I would play 4 Echidna, 4 of this, even if Echidna was the only villains in my deck. We also have down here, like you can see, like Lucifer, so we do have other search options, but even if Echidna was the only villains, I would still play 4 more Call of Darkness, or 4 and 4. Even though Call of Darkness might become a dead card later in the game, because Echidna is just so that important. Echidna's effect is on Revolution. You can reveal up to 2 machines you own from outside the game, and then keep them revealed until the end of game, which is Everything that Typhon has in the sideboard is practically a machine, so it just reveals and lets you get value, and it's like another. So like if you go order Echidna on like Energize, you get to reveal 2 things and reveal 1 thing because of Typhons and then Echidnas. So your opponent has to choose one to stifle. Normally it'll be Echidnas, because they typically just won't have the mana to do it twice, or the like resources to do it twice. And that means that you'll at least get 1 reveal, in order to start like going. And then she's just a 10/10 Bane. She also has quick cast, so so pretty good. Necronomicon Barrier, it's the closest thing that the deck has to like its own version of a stifle, right? Because you can only play darkness cards, so we can't play Lorite. We're villains, so we can't play Persephone as like a cancel type spell. We do have Garyon, which we'll get into later, but yeah, so like no Lorites, no Ares, even none of that stuff. We just don't have access to it. So Necronomicon Barrier is our best bet for kind of like a field. Resonators don't gain their activated or automatic effects of enters. Witch of the Fallen Kingdom, particularly powerful against Zeus, which is one of the other better decks in the format in most of our opinions for people who have been playtesting. So you just want an answer to Zeus's searches. Witch of the Fallen Kingdom does that. It's also a 1-drop in order to get ordered. Lumia, so you see that this is light and darkness, and I said Garyon earlier is green and darkness. Non-darkness cards refers to cards that simply don't have the darkness typing, or darkness attribute, not typing. But so anything that has darkness is considered a darkness card, even if it has other attributes. So for example, Lumia is still a darkness card. Remove target resonator with total cost 2 or less from the game, and then you also have the life gain as well. The life gain is the more relevant part, I think, because if you're playing Typhon, you're starting at 10,000 life, right? Your opponent's going to try and hit you with something or do whatever. You can just gain that amount of life. You'd have to have... I don't have a way to produce Light Will in the deck that I'm aware of. You could just opt for, like, these stones or whatever. I'll get into why I'm playing these stones, but, like, you could just opt to play, like, Moonshades instead. Again, you're at so much life, it practically doesn't matter. But that is something to keep in mind for the Lumia. I mainly wanted the removal piece. Suya. Target player banishes a non-magic stone, blah, 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 blah. It's also just... It's just a 1-drop darkness, and it also has a hand rip effect. Plus, because it is another hand rip effect, you get to play it at quick cast speed. So like I can play Curse of Ragnarok for 1 at instant speed, if I have the addition in play. So just very powerful card. Could even go up to 4. Like a lot of these numbers, I just have this count because I don't know, I like 3-ofs more than I like 4-ofs. 4-ofs are cards where I'm like, oh, I want to see this always. 3-ofs are cards, oh, I want to see this a lot of the time, but oh my god, if I draw multiples, I want to, like, scream. So, in the case of, like, a lot of these 3-ofs, right, like, I wouldn't be upset to draw, like, multiple Suyas, but, like, I don't want to draw 3 Wings of Light and Darkness or 2 Wings of Light and Darkness early. I don't want to draw 8 Glint of Insights, Battle Comes to an End, right? Like, etc., etc. So that's kind of where the numbers come from, and it's to give, like, deck space. But you can always cut down, you can always increase, depending on what you want. I did actually have Moonshades right before I finished this deck off, but then I thought, I'm in so much darkness, why do I need Moonshades? And now looking at it, it also works with Black Moonray, so forget this stone lineup, just take out, like, the 3 Black Silences and 1 stone from the Dark Castle, add 4 Moonshades. There you go. We're gonna make that change immediately. I'll let you play Lumia too. Black Moonray, just one of the easiest J-Ruler destruction things for either yourself, because you can kill your own J-Ruler if you absolutely need to, or you can also just kill your opponent's J-Rulers. The thing with Typhon and Zeus is they both want to keep flipping back, they mainly just want the enter, so this is less prevalent against those decks than it would be against, let's say, like, Shiva or Deus Ex Machina, Kaguya, things like that, right? Origin of the Seven Lands, another way to reveal from outside the game without needing Typhon's flip. We've seen this, you've seen this in quite a few of my decks, right? I think every deck profile I've released since the set came out has included Drywing Origin of the Seven Lands. It is just an incredibly powerful, like, combo, basically. So Drywing being the machine, when he becomes revealed, you recover a stone you control, you get a free green will to do kind of whatever you want to do with. A lot of the times for Typhon, it's going to do absolutely nothing, but you do get a new name revealed from outside of the game. For like, Echidna could reveal 2 Drywings, recover a stone twice. You get, it's just more will ramp, things like that. The other thing is to also, your opponent can only produce will by playing activate abilities of magic stones, so they can't cheat will anymore. It's just good to get that online. The other thing with Origin, because it can reveal anything, you can reveal your addition. You can reveal Typhon Cells. Like, you don't have to reveal Drywing. That's just the more prevalent thing that other decks have been doing with it. But Origin allows you to reveal your other cards that only proc when they're revealed from outside the game, not by Typhon's effect necessarily. So it allows you to get their effects and get them in play without having to commit to an order if you might not have it, as an example. So for like Drywings, you could drop them. I mainly wanted it for the continuous effect to prevent your opponent from like gaining will. It stops Typhon's blood. It's good for the mirror match. Stops like Zeus generating extra will off like Essence of Alice's power, like things like that. So it's just a very very good like kind of floodgate type deal. Look at Corruption, just one of the best generic discard spells in the game. You look at your opponent's hand, choose a card with cost 4 or less for 1 will, rip it out of their hand, and then you can pay 3 to get 2 cards. One would have to just be 5 or more. You're very rarely going to be paying 3. There are very few things that actually hits. It'd be like Garyon or something, but maybe Origin. You could rip an Origin out of your opponent's hand nowadays. But there are very few instances where you would pay the full 3. Glint of Insight, you pay a single darkness. You name a card, your opponent reveals their hand and discards all cards that share a name with the named card. Lorite, Typhon's Bloods. This card's very bad against Zeus, but like it's just a 1, like you just discard 1 card against Zeus. But against a lot of other decks, this can hit multiple things, multiple Lorites, multiple cancel spells, like all that kind of stuff that you might be trying to get rid of. Battle comes to an end. So Typhon can play this card turn 1, by the way. So if you go second, so you would go second, you call a stone, you activate Typhon's Blood, you energize, so that's stone, energize, Typhon's Blood for 1 will, you get 3 will, your battle comes to an end. Very good in the mirror match. You just call Typhon's Bloods, or Echidnas, or Typhon's Antibodies, or whatever you think is good to call in the mirror. You rip 20 cards out of your opponent's deck, and they just don't have access to Typhon's Blood or whatever anymore, right? And they can't, and because they're Typhon, they can't necessarily stop it. So Battle Comes to an End is very, very strong in the mirror, particularly if you're going second and you can get it off first. But other than that, because like so for example, if you get it off first, the only way your opponent is going to be able to go, and you call Typhon's Blood, the only way your opponent's going to be able to get their Battle Comes to an End off the next turn is if they go, so they have 2 stones now, right? Stone 1 from turn 1, stone 2 from turn 2, and then they would also have to have Origin in their hand already and reveal a Drywing. That would be the only way that they would have access to do that. I guess the other way is if they have an Echidna, they could order the Echidna with the 1 stone, get it recovered by revealing 2 Drywings, and then call their second stone, and then Battle Comes to an End. That is also a line that they could do. So it's kind of 8 cards in a much reduced deck because you ripped their Bloods. So odds are if they have it in hand, they can do it back to you, and you're kind of playing a game where you don't have any Typhon's Bloods, your opponent doesn't have any Typhon's Bloods. Quite strong in the mirror particularly. Final Battle. Card's pretty good at sorcery speed, especially because you have so much life to pay into it, right? You can just nuke their board and they can't really play anything, otherwise they'll just automatically die, especially because it also hits Jays. Wouldn't hate to see this go to 4 in the deck either. The other thing is because of the Arena expansion, you can give it quick cast, so you can play it on your opponent's turn to prevent them from actually doing anything. Decay of the Machines. Good in the mirror, also good for yourself. So what do I mean good for yourself? So Decay of the Machines, you can, with Decay, reveal Typhon's Hearts, right? and then decay in response to the trigger of it becoming revealed, put the Typhon's Heart into the grave, and then the effect to regain your life will trigger. You'll discard your hand and draw 5 cards, but you won't put Typhon's Heart into the field, so you don't have to worry about the you lose the game trigger when it dies. So that is something important. Decay of the Machines also just draws you a card, and because it says put up to, you don't need to actually have anything to hit. Also decent in like the Mirror, for example, right? Like they reveal Mount Othris, you send their Othris to the grave in response. Like things like that. So it just has other applicability as well. You can also use it against, say, other players playing Drywing in the Mirror, or like with Origin, things like that. It just has like option plays. Lucifer. So Lucifer is a free flip that also kills itself. So you get to immediately flip back over. And then it also, so it trades 1-for-1 for like card in play, trades with Lucifer, so it trades value neutral. It also makes your opponent discard a card, and there's also the life loss, life gain thing attached to it as well. Plus you get your free flip on order, right? If you order Lucifer. He's also another villains for Call of Darkness. So that's why he's in the deck. Also quick cast. So. Phantasmal Scarlet. It's basically a better Gradius. It makes a J Resonator lose all abilities until end return and then destroys it instead of just dealing 800 damage to it. Normally it's just sorcery speed, but again, Darkness Chance gain quick cast, so it's like a quick cast version of Gradius specifically for Typhon. Garyon. Because he is Darkness Wind, and we can have access to Wind Will, right? We're adding Moonshades, where we do kind of have a cancel spell in the form of Garyon. There aren't necessarily a whole lot of things you really want to like cancel. You'd rather be using your will for other stuff, more than likely, but Garyon is still quite impactful. Flame of Outerworld. Originally, this build had Reyes in it. It doesn't anymore. So you had a lot more searching going on with these. The thing with Flame of Outerworld is it's unchaseable, which is the most important thing for me specifically, because it deals with a lot of cards that might not necessarily be able to be dealt with because your opponent can do stuff in response, right? So like if my opponent's trying to combo off on me, I can Flames it. Like, Flames is very good against, like, Hanzo, for example. Like, other things like that. So, Flames is just a good option to activate in order to just, if you need something removed. You just need a card removed that's typically hard to deal with. Same thing with, like, Black Moon Ray and the extra Moon Will, which we're adding, right? So that is why it's in the deck. We do still have deck searching in the form of Fallen Angel of Fiery Vengeance. This is in the deck because it can banish itself even if it's ordered. That's just how the rules work, to search your deck for other Fiery Angels. So that'll allow you to activate the flames if you need to, and it also functions as a kind of form of removal while it is in the grave. So that is why the Fallen Angel of Fiery Vengeances are in there, and they also work with Flames of Outerworld for us. Curse of Caduceus. This is for a couple things. One, it helps against like Drywing stuff, right? Your opponent can't recover entities in a phase other than their recovery phase. Helps against Zeus, because Artemis is very, very strong in that deck. So like they can't recover their stones when they search off of Artemis or anything like that. The other thing with Curse of Caduceus, because it is an addition, it helps protect your Othris against things like Attendant of Asmodeus or other things like that. I believe Attendant's really the only one of its type where it's non-targeted banish removal. And it's also just your opponent can't gain life. So in like the Typhon Mirror, their hearts won't reset their life. Like I guess Zeus Aphrodite won't trigger, like things like that. Lumia can't reset life. So it's kind of like a form of like Rogue Spectator, Dodgy, which we've seen, things like that where you just prevent your opponent from gaining life. And then finally, 1 Typhon Cells. We're playing 3 in the sideboard. So we just have the 4th just in case for the reveal effect. because it counts all public zones and revealed from outside the game. It is also technically a mana ramp for machines, so it's kind of like draw a 21st Typhon's Blood if like you're trying to play like Echidna or anything like that on turn 1. All right. Stones, again, Typhon Stone, just Union 7 machine to produce 2 darkness. This 1, 2, 3, 4, make them Moonshades. And then these, when it enters the field, put a mystery counter on your J ruler. The reason for that is it allows you to get the Remnant effect on Glint. If you want, you can make them like 2 light black, like 2 Heaven's Rifts. You can make them 2 Black Silence. You can do kind of whatever you want with these. I just wanted to at least showcase this stone for the Glint interaction, because there are very few stones where you actually get like interaction among cards in your deck. It could let you cut Glints down to like 2 or things like that if you so want to. Typhon Cells on the side. So before the set was officially released, we had the full set spoiled, like we knew everything from pre-release week. And we had Typhon's Wave of Terror, which was Echidna. You could Echidna before your opponent did anything if you went second, and it would give you 2 machine reveals, which was 2 Typhon's Wave of Terrors, another reveal off of Zeus, or off of Typhon's Order, and it would allow you to make your opponent discard 7 before they even had a chance to play anything, even call Stone. So that got combo banned with Echidna, but Echidna is still broken. So we're just doing it with Typhon Cells instead. So instead of our opponent discarding 7, now we can draw 7. So that is one of the things with Typhon Cells. You're really only going to reveal the first 3, like, or at least the first 2 off of Echidna. You're never going to do it probably 1 by 1. You'd have to be in like a pretty bad situation in order to want to do that, or to have to do that. So a lot of the time when you do this off of an Echidna reveal, it's just Echidna's effect is draw 4. Right, because 2 will reveal it once. You'll draw 2 for one, draw 2 for the other. If you already have one in grave, it's draw 6. So it's just very powerful. It gets you a shit ton of value. And just kind of lets you go. We've talked about Typhon's Hearts, why they're in there. They reset the game, and with the Cave of Machines, they're pretty good. Mechanized Fenrir. Mechanized Fenrir can kind of just win you games. It kind of depends. You have a really rough time protecting your stuff. So like your darkness, so like your only real protection is like Garyon. There might be other things that I missed, but you're mainly about like destruction, ripping things, etc., right? Floodgates. Darkness never really had like protection type effects, right? So odds are this dies a lot, but it does prevent your opponent from playing non-machine J Resonator like abilities, so enters and things like that. If you think they're going to pop off, they would be forced to go through a Fenrir. The other thing with it is when it dies, because your opponent would pretty much have to deal with it, you do get any machine. So you can get Typhon's Blood, you can get Echidna, you can get Antibody if you really need it. You could get Cells in order to pass, like pitch it to grave in order to get more off of that, right? Like if you already have the Echidna in hand, you can go pitch Cells, play the Echidna, reveal 2 Cells, draw 6 cards, and then you still have like whatever extra will. So it's just it functions very well for the deck. Othris, really good arena expansion, gives all your darkness chance quick cast, lets you interact on your opponent's turn, instant speed discard, instant speed board wipe, all that good stuff. Gives your sorcery speed destruction instant, or makes it instant. Also gives you a bunch of extra machines, because whenever a machine resonator is put into play non-token, you get a 4/4 token, and then machines gain +2/+2, so they would be like 6/6s. If you have 2 Mount Othrises, they're 8/8s. And then Mount Othris also just has Eternal, so it's pretty durable. Again, Attendant of Asmodeus gets around it, Apollon gets around it, things like that. Drywing we've talked about. You could probably cut Drywing down to 3 if you wanted to add like another Mechanized Fenrir or something like that. I wouldn't necessarily be against that. I just kept them in at 4. Mechanized Children of Chronos. I like this one over Gaia because it's more discard. You have so much like field destruction, and not a lot of things really sit on field anymore. There's not like huge field, like I'm only making like 2 things passing or something like that. So like discard is typically better in my opinion. You can play this from outside the game. The other reasoning for this is, like, you get the free 4/4 Darkness Machine Resonator token, that's whatever, but you are allowed to kill your own thing with this. Like, you can play it and you destroy a machine entity. So, like, if I have an ordered Echidna and I really need to get rid of it to start ordering other stuff, I can bring in Mechanized Children of Chronos and just kill the Echidna. It gets me more value off of the Echidna, and it lets me start ordering again, right? Witch with the Pointy Hat, we're playing the four Fallen, Witch of the Fallen Kingdom. So I just have this in here in case you hit Seal 5, so you have a Stifle. So yeah, this just gives you access to a Stifle because you can play it from the sideboard. It doesn't have to follow the deck building restriction of darkness cards only. So it allows your Witch with the Fallen Kingdom to kind of function as a Stifle in the late game, which typically is when it might matter more. In addition to just like your opponent can't search the deck. So it would be pretty impactful against Zeus should you play like Witch of the Fallen Kingdom and you get the reveal, so you can stifle a trigger and your opponent would have to deal with Witch of the Fallen Kingdom as well. The fog effect is there too for like Typhon's antibodies, like things like that. So that is why I put it in there. But anyway, that is the deck. That is car 100 Typhon, as I'm calling it. Feel free to let me know what you all are thinking about Typhon and what you've been playing with. This video is going to be quite longer because there is 100 cards in the deck. But thank you all so much. Do look forward to Athenia next week. Athenia will be the one next week. And look forward to Wander Wednesday tomorrow. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.